And welcome back to the Swandingo Files. Today, I have Keith Mckeever here, a fellow veteran, podcaster, and now a real estate agent. So, how's it going today, Keith?
It's going good. How are you?
Well, we'll see. We'll see if I can get my pool here pretty soon. I'll be happier then.
Well, it must be nice. I'm definitely not getting in any bodies of water up here in Illinois at this time of year.
No, you've probably got like 5 months, and then you get like 2 months of swimming up there.
Well, something like that. If I was to get any outside bodies of water, I might, get hypothermia or something like that.
Yeah,
But hey,
no,
if
thank
that's your
you.
thing, if
Yeah,
that's your thing, right?
yeah. I've never understood that whole jumping in the ice water and all that. I don't know. That
Yeah,
doesn't sound like fun at all.
that makes
So,
two of us.
but they were just
Definitely
gonna
not.
But today we're just going to go over why you joined, what you did in the military, and your transition out, and how you're crushing it today. So, if you want to begin, why did you join the military?
Well, it is funny how everybody has a different story. And I was kind of lost, really. I had gotten an associate's in law enforcement, but I was just about 3 months shy of turning 21. And, the testing cycles for law enforcement, you pretty much had to be 21 at the time in 2006. They're pretty much looking for just bachelor's degrees, but all I had was an associate's. So I knew there's probably only a few departments I was going to be able to work for, kind of waiting for slots to open, just kind of floating through life, working 30 hours a week at Kohl's, which was a great place to work, but that wasn't long-term future plans at 20. And so just kind of figuring out, what is adult life looking like? Living at home with my parents, 20 years old, all that stuff. And I'm sitting at home one day around Valentine's Day and the phone rings. Landline, ancient technology by today's standards. So I pick it up and it's a recruiter calling. And for some reason, I talked to this Army recruiter. And I probably talked to him for like an hour or so, who knows. And he's like, "Oh, you got an associate's degree. That's awesome. You could be a warrant officer. So of course they're hitting all their verbal judo tactics, like so I was like, "Oh, that's awesome." He's like, "You could be a pilot." And I'm like, "Oh, this is even better." Because back in high school, I would read a lot of books about the Vietnam War, and a lot of books I had were about helicopter pilots. So like he was hitting all the check marks. It was all like, oh,
Nice.
sweet, I could be like a Black Hawk pilot, like all these different things, right? So I'm like, man, this is pretty cool. Then my stepdad comes home, but my mom, whatever, I don't know what she was doing, but it was just my stepdad. Now he was in Vietnam, he was Air Force, and I said, hey, look, he'd only been in my life for just a couple of years at that point, but I was like, hey, Bill, what do you think about this? It's like, I don't want to ask mom, but you served. What do you think? And he's like, well, do you like to sleep on the ground? I said, well, I mean, I don't mind camping every now and then. He's like, do you want to sleep on the ground all the time? It's like, not really. Okay. Well, you want to get treated like shit? But you don't mind if I curse, do you?
No, I
Okay.
don't.
All
I
right. Cool.
don't
Okay.
mind at all, and
Okay.
I just find it funny that it says sleeping in the dirt. It's like we don't sleep in the dirt that much. I promise you. Sometimes.
Oh no, I get that now, but he totally got me with that one. And so I was like, okay. And he's like, well, if you want good quality of life and you don't want to sleep in the dirt, you want to get treated right, he's like, you only got two choices, Navy or Air Force. He's like, well, Air Force did well for me. He goes, or you can sleep on a tin can out in the middle of the ocean. And I got to thinking about that. I'm like, well, I could swim, but I can't swim that far. And a giant tin can in the middle of the ocean doesn't sound like fun either. So, Air Force was about the only option that remained. So, next day or two, I was over at my friend's house and he had been away at college and partied a little bit too much, and his mom and stepdad had cut him off a little bit financially and said, you got to figure your stuff out. We're going to be done paying for college if you're not going to go to class. He was a super bright guy, but, party a little bit too much, like most college kids, right? So him and I were kind of both lost. And so his stepdad was Air Force in Vietnam. So he goes, well, if you're going to go talk to the recruiter, take his butt with you. So off we went, man. The rest is history. And I didn't have a job lined up. I was either going to be firefighter, security forces, or aerial gunner. And a recruiter called me one day about 2.5 weeks or so before I went into basic training. He was, look, I had a guy, guaranteed job, security forces, just broke his leg. He's like, I got nobody else that can go or that's interested in that job except for you. You're the only one I have that's old enough who has, sorry to say this, but nothing else going for them. You're just working 30 hours a week. He's like, do you want this job? And I'm like, well, I guess if I'm going to do this thing, like I might as well just jump in with both feet and just go now. Because if I wait 6 months, I might decide not to. So that's how I ended up getting in, man. I got that phone call around Valentine's Day, and I was, in basic training by April 4th. So it was not a very long process.
That's funny. He's blunt, straight to the point, called you up, but like, hey, I need my numbers up pretty much. And because
Yeah,
that's how the Air Force plays it. They can hold on to you for up to 2 years, and then they can be like, hey, I need this now. 'Cause I was a recruiter too for the Army, and it's all a numbers game. Like you said, you hit your points, you try to draw the kids in, but I never lied though. I promise. I put in, I think like 60 something kids in 3 years. I never lied, never, embellished too much to be like, oh yeah, we're so cool. Or it's like, man, these kids, they can do their own research now. They know when we're lying. They can tell.
well, there
So
was no research back in the day because, man, he got me with the four-wheeler videos and everything at security
oh,
forces. The sad part was, man, he was security forces too. So I was like, oh, this is cool. Four-wheelers, man. I grew up in the country. Like riding four-wheelers was a thing. Like we did it all the time. So I'm like, this is cool, man. I could be a cop in the Air Force and ride four-wheelers and do all this stuff. Yeah. The only time I ever saw a four-wheeler was at Scott Air Force Base. There was like 4 of them in supply. And guess who? The only 4 people who had the qualifications to ride?
hmm,
The 4 guys in supply. Nobody
of
else was
course.
allowed to touch. Oh, well, take it back. The commander and the first shirt might have had a qualification. Other than that, it was the supply section.
I'll never understand that either. Like, you need a license in the military to drive all these vehicles, and it's like, what? Like, you need a piece of paper that says you're qualified to drive. It's like, I never understood that
Yeah,
one. And then
I mean,
half of them were embellished, anyways. I at one point was licensed for an Abrams tank, and I've only been inside one time in my entire life. Like, that's no, you don't want to trust me behind the sticks of an Abrams, but.
yeah, so it's like, oh, you got Humvee on there, you got 5-ton, deuce and a half, like you got all these different things on there. How many people had bus driver on there? Where it's like, nope,
Yeah,
nope,
yeah,
you cannot hop on that four-wheeler. Do not touch that four-wheeler or that side by side. Like you don't do it.
yeah.
It's ridiculous.
It's funny that you said he was talking about a four wheeler because I chose Cavalry Scout mostly based off the video. I wanted front lines, I wanted combat, which I saw plenty of, and they don't have the video now, but the video I was watching or I saw back today had, of course, the Bradley fighting vehicle, the Humvee, and then it had dune buggies and dirt bikes. Well, guess what? Which two did I not see the
I'm
entire
pretty
time?
sure that was dune buggies and dirt bikes.
Exactly. So it's like, that's nice. I mean, I wish, but yeah, no. Back in the day, apparently they did that kind of stuff, and it's like nice.
Yeah,
So
somebody somewhere was like, we got to shoot a video. What unit has the most money and has the coolest equipment? And
you
so they're probably
correct.
like,
Now, so you join. So what all did you actually do? I know you said I know you were deployed to OEF at one point. So what all did you do while you were in?
so I was security forces. I went to Yokota, Japan first. I was there for just a couple of months before I went to Iraq, and I went to a place called Camp Bucca. It was a prison camp. So I was there for just a little under 8 months. So we were guarding the prisoners of war who were in there for all kinds of stuff, from, you know, the worst of the worst to all the way down to dudes that were, I'm pretty sure dudes were in there for like curfew violations and crap like that. So, I mean, it was a wide range of things dudes were in there for. It was a wild experience where we got shot at, indirect fire or escape attempts or riots pretty much 2 or 3 times a week, on average at least. So it was an adventure. It was pretty much referred to as hell on earth the whole time we were there. ran out of food pretty frequently while we were there. The main supply routes were pretty heavily IED'd at that time, and they had to go up and around. And we weren't that far from the Kuwaiti border either, which is kind of crazy that it took so long to get food. But we knew every time we walked to the chow hall and the MRE cases were sitting out there, it's like, well, as soon as I go in there, they're not going to have much food left in the case. You weigh your options: little triangle quesadillas and leftover French fries from Burger King, or MREs.
At some point, I would take the leftover French fries from Burger King, because I remember when they put that first Burger King up on Camp Victory. We were outside of it, inside of Baghdad, and they put that first one on there. So every time we went to Burger King, it was like a full-on order, like the whole platoon, like, hey, what y'all want, and all that stuff. So I remember that day, and it doesn't taste like the American Burger King at all, but it was close enough, and it wasn't MREs or the Mermite food. I still never figured out what those eggs are made of in the military. So
I have no idea. The fries never really got me. What got me was we had a little Pizza Hut there, and nobody forewarned me about the goat cheese on the pizza until I took that first bite, and I'm pretty sure I spit it out, and I'm like, what the hell is this? Like,
that
what is this? This is not cheese, like, and they're like, no, it's cheese. And it's like, no, this is not cheese. And they're like, no, that's goat cheese. And I'm like, somebody should have explained that. There should have been a warning label somewhere here on this little Connex trailer here that says, warning, goat cheese. You're not going to be used to this.
I guess I'm lucky. Both deployments to Iraq I did, I never had goat cheese. So thankfully. So
It's one of those things, I guess some people might say it's an acquired taste. I don't know if you ever acquire it. It's not my thing. Let's put it that way. But that first bite, you'll be like, this does not taste like cheese.
not a big fan. No,
No,
they got some good food over there. Like, I'd say the eggplant and other stuff like that was better than what we get here in America. It looks disgusting, but surprisingly, it's pretty good. And then, OF1 was 2003, 4. We're able to kind of go out to the marketplace in Amaria, not so much Abu Ghraib, and actually go out there, get the ice cream they had out there, and take our vest off or Kevlars off, and just kind of sit around. Back then, I mean,
man,
it didn't last long, but
ice cream was dangerous for me on that first deployment, man. I don't know if it was man, in that heat, in that southern Iraq heat, middle of the day, because I worked midnight to noon, and we would just, our whole group we'd have to hurry up and get to the chow hall to get food. So we'd go eat, and when we had food, the food was great in the chow hall. And obviously the food would kind of start dwindling down until you had triangle quesadillas and French fries or MREs. But when they had food in there, sometimes they'd have ice cream, and pralines and cream ended up being my favorite. But
same here.
I don't know what it was about that ice cream and the heat. I'm get real personal here. I had to pretty much leave straight from the chow hall, and instead of going back to my room, I had to go find a bathroom. That pralines and cream just go right through you, man. But it was good. I gave myself that punishment every freaking day. Now I could eat other dairy things. I don't know what's about that ice cream, man.
That's funny.
When you're deployed and you don't care and all the bad stuff happens to you and you're like, you know what, I could die tomorrow. I'm going to enjoy this pralines and cream today.
Oh God, I wish that did become my favorite ice cream too. I still to this day look for it, and surprisingly, it's not very popular here in the United States, but it's my favorite ice cream. My favorite one, though.
It is good.
Yes. So how many years did you do?
I ended up doing a little over 5.5.
Okay.
I did 2 deployments, a couple of schools like Security Forces, Combat Leaders Course 7 level, a couple of other things. What else did I do? Motor Vehicle Theft Inspector class for the state of Illinois. That was pretty fun.
Yeah, I didn't. Is that because you were in and you were in Illinois or something, or
yeah,
was that an option?
So I came back from, I guess I should, back that story up. Came back from that deployment, and a few months later, there came an opportunity to go on a team down to Ecuador. So I went down there for 6 months. We guarded the AWACS planes, and so we were down there for 6 months. Amazing team down there. Had an absolute blast. A lot of stories from down there I can't say or won't say. A lot of that's like, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas kind of stuff. But came back to Japan from there, in processed and out processed within 3 weeks. So PCS to Scott Air Force Base. and because I thought I was going to end up getting out at 4, and met my leadership. And I remember meeting the chief, and she says, how do you feel about deploying? And I said, well, ma'am, I know that I got enough time left in. You're going to deploy me now, or you're going to deploy me in 6 months from now. I know how the rotation goes. I'm young, single. I don't care. Send me wherever. So, like a week later, I'm, out of the training cycle. I'm sitting on the front gate, and I get a phone call, and it's the chief. And yes, ma'am. What can I do for you? Well, you know how you told me you don't mind deploying? Yes, ma'am. Well, you're going back to Iraq. So went to Joint Base Balad, got there right before Christmas of 08. So spent 6 months there at the South Entry Control Point. So we were doing I did the biometrics automated tool set for that gate, truck commander for blocking forces and all that stuff for the convoys. So not a whole lot happened on that deployment. That was a far different experience, going from a small fob with the prison camp and all the craziness to, I think there was like 30 something thousand people at Balad. Yeah, 2 chow halls and all the craziness of everything that goes on there at that base. It was massive.
Yeah, I can't remember. I remember a little bit about Blood, but not a whole lot. I think I only went up there twice. And that was just, I don't remember why, some sort of meeting we had to take the colonel to or something. Um, but yeah, my majority of time is on small fobs. Yeah, the life on the big fob is just, I don't know. I didn't care for it. So
It was wild. I mean, it's just like being on a city. I mean, you got sidewalks, the city streets, you got buses, bus routes everywhere. The chow hall, like I think 3 gyms. There was like 2 or 3 chow. Or there was at least 3 chow halls. I mean, there was a movie theater. There was a pool. Not that I ever went to the pool. I mean, anything you wanted to do was pretty much there. I had roommates that were all 3 brand new, pretty much brand new airmen, first deployment, and they were like, "Oh my God, this sucks." And I'm like all happy. And they're like, "What are you so happy about?" And I'm like, "Look, man, this room is like 5 bunk beds in here, and there's only 4 of us." I was like, my first deployment, there was literally the same amount of bunk beds, and they were all full. I was like, we have room to spread out. You can throw all your gear on top. You have extra wall lockers. We're fine. And plus, the showers and bathrooms are attached. And there's a day room with a TV. And somebody's got an Xbox down there. I was like, what
okay,
more could you ask for?
okay, calm down now. You're making me regret joining the army. God damn it.
I'm sorry.
No,
Hey, like I said to them, like, what more could you ask for? Like, this is like, to me, like living a life. I was like, what are you guys complaining about? Like, in the chow hall's like, a few blocks away. It's a 10-minute walk. The gym, I mean, everything was close by. I'm like, dude, I would stay here for forever. I mean, yeah, there's some inherent danger, but like, shoot, I'll deal with it.
yeah, that would be too bad. I think probably would have had the same wear and tear on my body, but it would have been different experience, I'm sure. But I don't know, there's just something about going out of the gate, getting shot at every so often. The only thing I didn't like was the IEDs, I guess. But yeah, that was the only really bad part. But there was such a difference between OIF 1, how you got treated, and then OIF. Well, I went OIF 1 and then OIF 3. And OIF 3 is when they were OIF 1 is when they started putting like Victory and all these big bases up. And it's like, man, we're going in there. It's like, how are these units going to get out of the gate fast enough for like QRF and all this other stuff that comes up? And then I don't know, they manage, but it's like it's gonna get too comfortable. People are gonna get too relaxed, and but
Yeah, it's pretty
man,
comfortable lifestyle being there in Balad, really. I mean, a lot of, you know, your body armor and everything stays in your room. We had an armory to check our weapons into. I mean, there's 30 something thousand people. I mean, nobody carries weapons around with them for the most part. So it's pretty comfortable environment. So that's why I said, I was like, I could have stayed there forever.
kind of wish I would join the Air Force now. Honestly,
Well, hey,
not
there
gonna
was, I
lie.
mean, pretty much every branch was there. So, there's plenty of
Well, yeah.
opportunities.
Well, I was that stupid kid that joined combat arms front lines, and I was 18 when I joined in 2000. Well, 2002 when I joined, and I was like, man, I just want to go kill people, shoot at stuff, have all that fun stuff. Looking back on a hindsight 2020, I wish I would have done something smarter. So would have carried more to the outside world. But being a scout, yeah, ain't much they can get out on. So
I can understand it to some degree. I mean, I'm not using I'm not using that much of what I did, in my career now. I mean, there's certain skills and stuff you learn by being in the military that translate, but you know,
There is,
It's not that much.
and that's the thing, is like, and that's another thing I always told kids when recruiting. It's like, I had kids scoring higher on the ASVAB tests, like 70s, 80s, stuff like that wanted infantry. It's like, you sure you want infantry? It's like 100%. I can get you all these other jobs or one of these other jobs, and it's like, you sure you don't want one of them? And they're like, no, I just want infantry. It's like, I mean, I can't tell you no, but it's like, okay, I
I mean, it's hard
guess.
to tell somebody who's young, who doesn't really know that much about the world, like, here, take my advice. Like, here's, it's really good advice. I mean, I've said for a long time, like, people, the military is a great option, but you really
Mhm.
need to think it out. And you really need to, if you're smart about it, you can use it as a massive stepping stone for your entire life. If you, from day one, if you if you pick your branch carefully, you pick your job carefully, you take advantage of the education benefits and all that stuff, you can really set yourself up big time if you're smart about it.
And that's what I always try. Yeah, that's what I always try to tell my privates. But the problem was I didn't practice as much as I preached. But I only got 2 years worth of college while I was in for 14 and a half years. And, it seemed like the higher rank I got, the busier I got. It's like, man, I should have started this when I was a private. I probably would have had a bachelor's by now. But, once you make E6, especially when you make E7, it's not a whole lot of time anymore. So,
Yep.
so you did your time. When did you know you were transitioning out? Like how
Uh,
long before you got out did you start preparing?
I had a couple of months notice, pretty
Okay.
much. So I mean, I had enough time to pretty much had about half of my, I guess I'll say our base housing, house, whatever you want to call it, duplex, whatever it was, had pretty much the garage about half packed. So we were pretty much ready to go, but still didn't know my exact date right away. But it was you know had a couple months to know exactly what I was going up.
Did you have kids while you were in, or
I had
were
one.
they out?
Yeah, I've
You
got
had
two
one.
now. I
Okay.
had one. Yeah, so he was about one when we got out.
So did you have a plan when you got out? Did you already like kind of know what you were going to do, or did you just kind of get out and fly by
Man,
night?
I had no clue. I had no clue at all. We didn't know we were gonna go either. It was weird because I was at Scott Air Force Base. My wife is from there. My mother-in-law retired from there. She was career Air Force, and I'm from about 3 hours north of there, up in Peoria area. For some reason, I mean, this is where I'm from up here, so we just pretty much packed up everything and moved up here. We could have stayed down there. I don't know why we didn't. I guess it was just one of those
Yeah.
things. It was just like pack up the vehicle and move up here.
Scott
So,
Scott's the one just in the southern part of Illinois, right?
yep,
Scott Air Force Base. Okay, I couldn't
yep.
remember where that one was at for sure. It sounded familiar, but yeah, I couldn't remember.
Yeah, you got East St. Louis and you
So,
got Fairview Heights and Bellevue, Belleville, and then Lebanon,
mm,
Muscuda, Scott Air Force Base. There's a bunch
mhm.
of little towns that's kind of going in order there, but I mean, it's a great place to live down there. But for some reason, we just moved up here. I have no idea. Um, so yeah, we moved up here, and I think it was about a month later. I finally got a job. I got a job working for Furniture Row, which was a great company. And I look back on it now, and I think I got pretty lucky because the regional manager had served, and there was a store manager, assistant manager, and one sales guy. And they hire you specifically to be in sales and then to eventually become an assistant manager and then, go up through the ranks. So I was lucky enough to get hired, but I think it was because there was only so many people. It was this small unit kind of feel. We worked together 70 hours a week. We were together all the time. We would cook food in a crock pot and bring it in. Everybody's family, like, nobody's family saw them. So sometimes people's wives and kids would come in and hang out in the store for a little bit just to, so the kids could see their dad, on the non-busy times or after school. Like, that's just kind of how it was. So we got to know each other's families and different things like that. And I was only there for like 14 months or something like that. But, one of the guys I worked with is still kind of like a big brother to me. We're still pretty close to a couple of those guys. And I think that helped me in my transition. I didn't really have
That's
time to
good.
stop and think because it was same group of guys, always around them. Never really had time to kind of stop and think. And so that was really, I think, beneficial to me. Then
Yeah,
after that, you know, about the end of that, my wife got pregnant during that year, and then our youngest was born. He was born premature. He was born a couple months early. And so the company at that time, I had already gone through the management training. They wanted me to relocate. We were like, not with a baby who's, got unknown medical issues, that being born 2 months early. We're not going to leave family and support structure. That's just stupid. Like, I don't care. There's no job worth that. So we were like, okay, let's buy our first house, so we have some stability over our head. And then my mother had been in real estate at that time for 25 years. And my father had his license from 88 till 2001 when he passed away. My stepfather had his license for a couple of years. She met him a few years after my dad died. So real estate's been a family affair for a long time. And so she's like, well, if you're not going to relocate and you got to go get a different job, why don't you get in real estate with me? Which is something I, as a kid, was like, I am never doing that. I am never, ever, ever getting in real estate. And I thought about it and I'm like, well, for lack of other options, and the fact that it's my mother, there's nobody else in this world who's going to be able to take me under their wing and, train me right and have the incentive to train me because it's your mother. Like, they're not going to do anything to set you up for failure. So I was like,
did
sure.
she ever get did she ever get angry with you when during training?
Oh, no.
Okay. I just
No.
wonder because how some people can be. So
No,
I wonder if
actually,
she ever
no.
had to get after you.
No, it was kind of difficult getting a real estate license because honestly, a lot of the stuff they teach you in real estate license, pre-licenses is garbage. It's stuff that you don't use
Mhm.
at all in your actual practice. So I would ask her questions and she's like, I have no idea. We don't use that. So got my license, went to work with her, ended up working with her for 9 years at the same company. That company ended up closing their doors a little over a year ago. At which point we both went to the same company we're at now. It's Fathom Realty. It's actually a veteran owned company. Um, but at that time we realized that she's got a couple years till retirement. I'm still trying to grow my business. So same company, but we are both individual agents at the company, which was a mutual decision because we both realized we're going in total different directions. But we've always gotten along really well. I don't know if I want to really use the term mama's boy, but like we're really close. With my dad dying when I was 16, like I was kind of the man of the house at that point in time. I was the only guy left. It was just my sister and I. She's a year and a half younger than me. So it was like, we've always gotten along. And so we were, pretty good business partners. We had our struggles, mostly with technology for her sometimes.
Yeah, well,
I'm pretty
it
tech
happens
savvy.
with.
I'd be like, Mom, check out this tech tool. She'd be like, slow down, Keith. Let me just play with the tech tool, and I'll tell you in a couple of weeks if I can figure it out. But
Uh,
she'd do all right eventually. But it would take her a little while to figure it out, and but that's to be expected in different generations sometimes.
it is, and I'm seeing that now in this industry with this and the other one. It's the old. I don't want to like talk down on them, but they're just a little bit behind the times in some of the technology, and trying to play catch up can be kind of aggravating. And even my wife, she's a nurse at the prison here, and where we live, and she's got a charge nurse that's doesn't know anything, and she's just like, it's frustrating. It's like it's not that hard for you. Well, for us, I guess, because we grew up around computers, but I guess for them, it's just I don't know. They're just not catching it fast enough, or what?
Well, think about the generation behind us too. That a lot of them were just kind of handed a device when they were born. How
True.
much faster are they going to be at quicker at picking up things? you know, Eventually they're gonna be like, how are you guys not getting it? You grew up with technology. You know what I mean? So who knows?
So I know you started your own podcast and everything too. What is it called again?
The Battle Buddy podcast.
Okay, and what
Yep.
do you guys talk about and go over?
Yeah. So that started in 2020. Um, Gosh, like 8, 9 years ago, I started trying to get a little bit more involved in the veteran community because I kind of realized I needed to be connected to the veteran community for my mental health. And um, so I've got in touch with the honor flight taking vets to DC and slowly got involved with that. And that's been an amazing experience. But obviously, you can't take a bunch of vets to DC during the global pandemic when they're in their 80s and 90s. So those flights didn't happen for a couple years. So I'd already had this idea for a podcast, and when that shut everything else down, I was like, okay, well, I'll just do this podcast. You know, being in real estate, driving around all the time, I'd listen to podcasts all the time. So I was like, I'll just produce one. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'll just figure it out. Grab a microphone and a camera. You know, you just figure it out and you learn as you go. So my wife actually created the logo. I came up with the name. We just kind of fumbled through it. I did reach out to a guy who went on the honor flight with us, who's local here to Peoria. He was my first guest. I knew like 5 seconds into him telling his story of how a service dog saved his life. I was like, wow, okay, people telling their stories has a one heck of an impact. So then did second episode, third episode. Then in 2021, I was like, okay, I'm going to do one every other week because I was still in college, use my GI Bill to get my degree. And then in 2022, once I was done with that, I was like, every week I'm going to do one. And it's just, I've been consistent with it ever since. And so I've done 90, as of this week, 91 episodes I've released. And every
Nice.
episode is designed to, the way I look at it, to educate or inspire veterans, military members, or their spouses, whatever. I look at it like the whole family, to educate or inspire them to better their lives in some way, shape, or form. Whether it's a resource I'm highlighting, or just a story, or something else that they can take a little nugget from it and be like, I can implement that in my life and better my life in some way, shape, or form. And so that's my goal, just
That's
to
good.
help people kind of improve in some way.
And I like how you said your mental health too, because honestly, I've only been doing this like 2 weeks, and I don't even know what number I'm on anymore. I did a blitz of 5 the other night, and it's just, but you think you'd be exhausted and everything, talking to 5 people back to back to back to back, but it's like hearing their stories has been great for my mental health. Like it's so nice hearing other people's perspectives, what they've gone through, some worse, some not as bad, of course. But it doesn't matter. It's like, because we all respect each other. I mean, I'm sorry you were Air Force. I won't hold that against you.
That's all
But
right.
we have banter back and forth about the different branches and stuff like that. But at the same time, it's like we all served. It's nice to hear different stories and what other people went through. And it has actually helped me out a lot in just the short amount of time. So I'm
I agree.
I'm
I'm the
excited.
same way.
I'm excited to keep this going. It's going to be, God, I don't know, a couple of thousand years probably if I live that long. So, so you got your podcast going. You're still doing real estate. How's the real estate going up in Illinois right now?
Well, I hate to say, it's probably just about like everywhere. There's a lack of houses for sale and a lot of buyers that are looking and just can't find anything. So unfortunately,
Mhm.
it's not a super positive outlook. But it's, if you're looking to sell your house, it's a great opportunity. If you're looking to buy, it's a little frustrating. So
Too bad. Too bad I didn't know you before I sold my house. It's only been a year and a half since I moved down here. So I literally closed. Well, I closed on the house and I moved down here in November of what year are we? So it's November
23.
2021. So I sold it. It closed on November. Yeah, November. I moved down here 2021. February 2022 it closed up there finally. And they were just, the people that bought that house were just nitpicking. It's like, it was built in 1906. It's the best house you're gonna find in this, year, shape, 2-story, the old Purington paver bricks. Nothing wrong with a single one. Roof was nice. Everything was nice. And they just want to nitpick, and it's like, all right, all right. And I finally called the real estate agent, my real estate agent, and told him, you know what? I know they've sunk some money into this and all that, but I have money to blow. They got 1 week to close, or I'm backing out. So I don't care. So I can blow what little bit of money I put into this, and I know they can afford it. So, and guess what? They closed. It's like, thank you. So I don't know if that was legal or not, but it's like I'm just tired of dealing with these people. So
Well, it can get kind of frustrating sometimes if somebody's getting a little nitpicky, and sometimes, well, I mean, it's a big purchase for anybody, but sometimes people need to realize that every generation of house, I guess I'll call it a generation, but every one of them has different features,
mhm.
right? Yeah, house built in 1906 is going to have dimensional lumber. It's going to have older wiring, unless it's been completely redone. But generally speaking,
Yes.
it's going to have older wiring. It's going to have older plumbing. It's going to have some uneven floors. It's going to have hardwood floors. It's going to have probably pavers outside. Like there's just certain things you expect in a house that's 100 something years old. It's going to certain
Mhm.
things you expect of a house that's in the 80 to not 100 years old, that's built in the 30s, 40s, whatever. Same thing with mid-century homes. They're homes built in the 70s or 80s. There's just certain things you expect. Like 70s, you're going to get paneling. You're probably going to get the really dark paneling. You might even find some shag carpet still on occasion, right?
Oh,
Just like, yeah, I know, right? Ugh, it makes me cringe too.
God.
But like, there's just certain things you expect, and it's on us as real estate professionals to just educate our buyers. Be like, this is what you should expect in a home of this age, right? That like, this is what the electrical is probably going to be like. This is what the plumbing is going to be like, and this is what it's going to be like in generally every house in this price point in this age. So this is just what you have to expect, and this is what you have to, deal with.
Well, and that's the thing though. Actually, the people that own the house before me, of course, I'm not gonna tell you their names, but the wife actually, I don't know if she still does, but she ended up being head of one of the hospitals down there in Peoria. I don't know, I can't remember which one. So she was like, they made good money. They made all the updates to the house. The only thing they didn't do is the windows, but I replaced a bunch of those. So overall, the house was like immaculate for 1906. So, and then, all my neighbors were actually, one of the neighbors that moved in was running Cottage Hospital up there in Galesburg. Of course, I think that shut down finally, but it's like, so we were in a great area, beautiful house. And it's just like, why are you doing this? Like,
Well,
you're
sometimes
not
you run
gonna.
into what I would call the HGTV curse, where
Mm,
where some people just want everything exactly like they see it on TV. 100% all done up perfect. But let's just face it, not every house is perfect. Like no house is perfect. Not even
no,
new
I'm telling you right
construction
now.
is perfect.
Oh no, 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 no. They
So,
settle and they start cracking. Yeah,
oh
no,
yeah, but I mean, people see what they see on TV and it looks all perfect and that's what they want. And yeah, I refer to it as the HGTV curse, and
yeah.
it's a real
Ca-
thing.
California's killing us with that stupid show or wherever it's filmed at. So, so it seems like you're doing pretty good now, and I'm proud that you are, and glad it didn't take you long to find a job in Furniture Row, which I know Furniture Row very well. I really like that environment. I'm glad you got that environment coming out because a lot of vets don't get it. Um, if there's one thing you can take while you're transitioning out, what would you tell the veterans coming out now?
And one thing I would tell veterans to do now is something that wasn't available when I got out is really take advantage of this skill bridge program, because obviously, there's manpower issues your commander has to figure out. So not everybody could potentially get it. But if you have the opportunity to take skill bridge and get something, do it. Take that opportunity, because what they're going to teach you in your TAPS program is a bunch of garbage. It is all Department of Labor. Yes, it's I think it's important to have a LinkedIn profile. It's important to have a good resume. All that's important, but that's not everything. And it's sometimes it's who you know and some of those things that are important too. And it just taking that time to be away from your unit and be in a civilian world can give you some insight and some adjustment. It's not perfect, but it's something.
Yeah, it was. I can't remember what they called it when I was getting. Well, I got out 2017, so it's only been coming up on 6 years now, and it was garbage. They had to make a LinkedIn page, but it's like they didn't explain why. It's like, and then it's like, why just LinkedIn? Why not, professionalize our Facebook? I don't. Yeah, Twitter was around then. Twitter, Instagram, all the stuff to network with. Why are you just using LinkedIn? So it's like, yeah, LinkedIn's a great tool. Don't get me wrong, and it's great for professionals, but most of these kids coming out aren't going to walk into no corporate job where you're going to be looking at LinkedIn. Most are going to walk out to blue collar jobs because they didn't make themselves marketable while they were in. They just did it 3, 4 years and got out and did nothing. Just because you're in the military doesn't mean you deserve a job. You got to make yourself marketable to the outside world. Yeah, we got great skills of, leadership, depending on your position, discipline. We always show up on time, at least hopefully. But just because you have that doesn't mean you're going to get some great job on the outside. So
Yeah, it's definitely not going to be handed to you.
No, and rightfully so. It shouldn't be because you're competing
Exactly.
against other vets that went to college or already came out with that skill. So it's just I had a little trouble when I first got out. I did walk right into the DMV, got my license without ever driving a semi. Kind of scary. Kind of. Well, I don't know if you've seen them up there. It was Rask Transportation. They haul fuel in that area up there and haul rock and all that stuff. Red trucks, older. So they run
No, I
around
don't
there.
think so.
Yeah, they haul to all the Heidi's in the area up there and a few other small ones. So, but they're around. Yeah, great guy, but yeah, it's not for me. So, but but that's about it. Do you have any questions?
No, no, I just thanks for the opportunity to come on and talk to you.
Well, now that I know you, and all my family's still up there, and a lot of some friends I still stay in contact with. It's nice to know that there's somebody in that area, and if I find anybody, I will definitely direct them to you.
Yeah, appreciate
So,
that.
yeah, I mean, I'm not guaranteeing, of course, but hey, if I can throw you one or two here and there, if possible. So, but so
Always
that
happy to
wraps
be a
up.
resource. If I mean,
Yes.
anybody has any questions or things like that too. I mean, I've got a YouTube channel for my business too that I try and put educational stuff on there. My personal mission statement, it kind of blends over to my real estate business, is educate, guide, and connect. And so
Yep.
it's kind of something I try to do, is just educate people as much as possible, and try and cut through some of the clutter online, especially when it comes to real estate, because you can find a bunch of crap online that's not applicable because it's from another state or something like that. So
But
try and
also make sure you tell veterans 75% or over disability rating, no property tax up there. Because I'm at 90 and I didn't pay any property tax up there. So, and then I forgot what it goes from there, but
it's
um,
70 and above is exempt, which is
yeah,
great.
70. That's it.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I couldn't remember exactly off the top of my head, but yeah. So, well, that wraps up this episode of the Swandingo Files with Keith Mckeever. If you're looking for a home in Peoria, Illinois, make sure you look him up. If you want to get on the Battle Buddy podcast, make sure you get in touch with him. He's eager to listen to you and give you some good guidance. Everybody have a good night.